Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Shadowverse. Today is Friday, October 16th. We have a little bit of a different setup at the moment. I'm getting some of the things I had planned on buying on Prime Day, so now I have a sound uh, reflector, which is kind of a wraparound half circle of foam, little foam cut into triangles for soundproofing that is on the back end of my microphone, which probably won't reduce the noise much because there wasn't that much noise in the first place, but who knows? The better the signal is always better. I'm also trying out the new OBS recording noise suppression versus my old settings, which might not really work out because there's no options in the new setting where there are options in the old setting, so this might actually sound worse. Um, I've also got a new cell phone grip that is like on a snake style arm, what that you can just bend and put anywhere. So now my cell phone is not just sitting on a table next to me, it's now to the left of me, kind of up in my face, so I can potentially see the chat more often. If I look in that direction, it is kind of a bit in the way. I probably need to move it higher up too, because at the moment, like, if the monitor is where my mouse is that I'm looking at the game at, then the cell phone is over here, and then my second monitor is over here. That should be right next to it, but it just isn't. Um, I've adjusted to that. As far as video games go, we have a new arena uh, tournament going on. Let's replace this, although replacing a 30 is probably not a great idea. Um, okay, so there's Rival Rotation Cup, which you get a daily free entry, and I've probably already missed a couple of them. Let's go back and look at the actual missions instead of just re-rolling them. Swordcraft or Shadowcraft or Runecraft or Dragoncraft. Sword, Shadow, Rune, Dragon. Alright, who do we want to play as that we think we might actually win? Swordcraft. We don't have a Dragoncraft deck. Do we want to edit a Dragoncraft deck? Hmm. Hmm. This is gonna be quite the edit. And I think we probably don't really want to waste time trying to figure out what's different here. We need 7 new cards. Let's look at what we can add. We have Lucifer, which doesn't seem to synergize with much. Although, um, let's see. We have an Accelerate, Restore 2 defense, draw 2 cards. That's probably not a terrible card. Deal 3 damage to 2 random things. That's not bad. That's pretty standard. Let's see. Destroy characters. Discard cards. That might be something, but I don't think so. Overflow with Dragoncraft. It might work. One of those might work. Let's see. Try not to do anything here that's too crazy. I don't know if this really is an overflow deck. Dragoncraft is kind of one of those cards that, one of those styles of heroes that I'm not sure actually benefit much from having an ability like Overflow. If I think about it, there is kind of a complete forgetfulness on the part of the game as far as just, hey, this is the thing you this is the thing that Dragoncraft is known for. Instead, it seems more and more just a case of you can play as any hero, and the only slight difference will be the cards that are available to them. We want to play this every day if we have time, but also I really don't want to play Shadowverse or any collectible card game every day, and Shadowverse is just as bad as many other card games about wanting you to play every day. I wish my cell phone would keep the screen on. They've disabled that feature, Samsung did. Probably because I realized that the batteries couldn't last with the screen on the whole time. But there's a literal debug option to say keep the screen on forever for all Android phones, and it just ignores that. So for the accountability section, I'm attempting to get my server rebuilt with a new CentOS operating system. Like, this is more nerd stuff, but I'm trying to do everything using a system called Docker, which sandboxes every app and has a lot of just pre-built configuration files for installing programs and reinstalling programs and maintaining programs. And theoretically, and I'm not sure how useful it really is for a single person with a home laboratory type server in one server. I'm not sure how useful Docker really is in this scenario, but this is something that I'm trying, and I'm just trying to get all of that to work. And yeah, it mostly is working. The resilvering of my raid said it was done. Or said it would be done in 10 hours, and then I went back and it said, oh no, we're at 15% again. It just restarted, which is constantly what was happening before. And yeah, I do think it is a hardware issue, and I don't think that that I can do anything until that's fixed. So yeah, I worked on my server, and then at a certain point I got files copying over to the point where I couldn't even do anything anymore on the server. So then I decided to actually start playing some things. So for the first time in probably a week, I started to play and record a game called Impresja, which I think is French for impression. IMPRESJA. And I played it for a couple of hours, and then I got stuck because I missed a point. It's a non-Euclidean puzzle game where you're walking around, for lack of a better term, a white box museum, and there are paintings everywhere, and the paintings seem to interact with each other in some way that changes the actual layout of the whole world. The paintings seem to shoot out a black sightline beam, and that black sightline beam seems to it seems to then turn around.
There's a lot more where that came from. Awaken, for the end is near. You've been chosen.
Let's go ahead and hit that. Um, so yeah, so there was a new gameplay mechanic that's introduced about half the way through the game. It's not a super long game, maybe 4 hours, and it has like only 15 reviews, and it's mixed. Um, but yeah, I think the case there is that the the these pictures, if they're on an easel, can be right clicked versus just being left clicked to be picked up and put down, which is all I had been doing up until that point. And when you right click it, it changes what's on the picture, which changes what's inside the room that the picture is depicting. Okay, this,
I hope you enjoy my traps. Nowhere to run.
that.
Big trouble now.
Oops. That was not what I meant to do. Let's go ahead and just evolve to try and keep that alive. So yeah, doing a little bit of work here and there. Had to mess with my router for a brief moment to move which IP address is assigned to which computer, which is necessary for like port forwarding settings and all of that. It's just easier to say that the server, whichever MAC address, whatever machine, whichever network MAC address it has, that is going to be the server, and that's going to be at a specific IP address, so that everything else can be programmed to go to that specific IP address.
My dragon and I are one.
Do not seek what is not there.
Yeah, I don't know if I can evolve this and then do anything more with this. You can basically only play this card once in a game and maybe get one extra play point orb, which I'm not sure how valuable one extra play point orb really is. Let's see what this does. There we go. Oh yeah, I also finished the loading bar code that I was doing for the ZFS resilvering process. Code as a script. At least I think I'm finished with it. We'll see how OpenZFS's GitHub. I'm playing around with that, and a couple people have gone in there and said, hey, you could have written the code this way, you could have written the code that way, and I'm like, it works at the moment as it is. But then the entire submission process itself is saying, like, well, you didn't follow this code style check that we have, and I'm like, I don't want to have to learn your code styling check hoops. Like, this was just a quick and dirty, less than 50 line code. Apparently doing bash scripts is not in style, so I think I will just go back to using ash, the sh commands instead of the bash commands, and I don't know if there's a significant enough difference to not try and learn a way around it. Apparently, like, either something like FreeBSD or some other Unix or something does not use bash. Enough that someone commented. And then they oddly wanted a copyright for code I'm submitting to another project, and I'm like, well, doesn't it just fall under the copyright of the rest of the project? And frankly, I really don't want to live in a world where a 50-line bit of code that shows a loading bar is copyrightable in the first place and isn't just a generic idea. or that my implementation of a generic idea for a loading bar is so unique that it
Bow before
deserves to
dark
be
dragon,
copyrighted.
ruler of the
Like
skies.
that's the problem with code, is that
Fighting and despair all you know?
if you're making an entire game, sure, that deserves a copyright. If you're making a system that adds 1 plus 1, that's math, and math shouldn't be copyrighted, regardless of how many unique or different ways you think you've done. You've made this system that adds 1.1, 1 plus 1. My secondary thought on the loading bar of showing like the tens place and having a bar, so there would be 1 out of 10 for tens place, and then 1 out of 10 for 1, and then 1 out of 10 for the 0.1, and then 1 out of 10 for the 0.01. I didn't get any further with that, not because of the math, but I was bouncing back and forth between two different the two different scripts and just saying, well, I'm tired of banging my head against this part, I'll go try the other one, and then the other one finished. So it was kind of a race to see which one would work first. Frankly, I hope that the whole script kind of gets rejected and they just integrate the same op system directly into the code of the real program. There's really no reason to run a bash script that then runs another command to show a progress bar. It should just be that inside the actual command there's a progress bar. That can also reduce some obvious like wear and tear that will almost certainly happen by running the same command, or just redundancy, certainly extra processing power to run a command that you don't need. So I would be more than happy if they took the general idea of my code and said, all right, well, this would be easy enough to just put in the regular program, and we'll just not have it be separate. Although I was effectively just making the code for my own personal use and perhaps to spark a conversation. But at the moment, it's forked, and then there's a pull request to try and merge this new file, and the pull request is being blocked by automated things, automated process that says it's not following the code styling, and that it would somehow affect hundreds and hundreds of other files in the system, and I don't know exactly how that is at all. That seems really weird. It's not like there should be any effects there. But yeah, some of those build bots on GitHub don't make a lot of sense, and I don't know if a pull request and a fork allows for other people to submit code, because that's ideally what I'd want people to do, is not just comment to me and say, well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. I'm like, well, if you know I can do that and you're gonna put a comment, can you take the next step? And it's a big ask, certainly, but if you care, can you just take the next step and just rewrite the code the way you want it and submit that? I'll be more than happy to merge your pull request into my fork, and then that might work better. Because it kind of seems pointless to go to try and baby this one software and just maintain it forever, like for a little script thing. That's just not what I want to do with my life. I've got other things to work on. Speaking of other things to work on, we've got rather a lot of video game news today. And yeah, I'm still uploading videos, but I also went through a period of just downloading selecting a lot of games to download and install, and I clearly need to start recording more things. I really don't have as much um, as I would like when it comes down to
My dragon and I are one.
Prove your worth.
like what was I saying? And still having some sleeping issues by far. In fact, I stayed up so late last night. I was actually actively feeling sick. I was like, man, I've either not eaten anything for like 16 hours, or I've been awake way too long. But yeah. Yeah, I need to start
I hope you enjoy my trap.
recording more games and continue to upload things and continue to just try and get everything to get back in the process. I don't have that many videos scheduled. I'm somewhere around February, which does put you
How could you avoid my
about 6 months ahead, but frankly I would like to be a year ahead as far as pre-recorded footage goes. I'm not planning on ever really making any big changes to my channel. My content is the content. Still want to play games. I've got plenty of games to play. In fact, a lot more when I was going through the list than I even realized or remembered. Destroy an enemy follower.
You are forgiven.
Gonna lose here. So yeah, for Friday, there's a considerable amount of games that have come out. So let's just look at them. We have a game here called Kiro, which seems like it's an all red. Kind of looks like what you would make for Virtual Boy. Horror text adventure is what it's being tagged as. Yeah, it does seem like it's kind of like a point and click text game. Interesting idea to have to type in text as your interface and then have visuals reflect that, but I don't know if that really works as an idea. Like that's a interesting thought, but I think practically in reality wise there's no move there that makes sense. One of the things that is important to mention when you're setting up a sound system, like a recording system, if you've got any chords that can hit the pole like that, which I'm sure you can hear that, it will amplify very much into the microphone.
The artifacts
So the snake arm that I got that's holding my cell phone, I originally put it on the mic stand, and as soon as I started tapping, even with a small amount of force on the cell phone, it started vibrating and making noise. But so it's important to isolate that, which means now to the left of me I have a monitor mount that is going to have a monitor on it. So as my new TV comes in, that is connected to a probably not sturdy enough to have a monitor mount on it, wireframe table, and on that wireframe table is also clamped the cell phone thing. So you kind of need a heavy, sturdy, like solid wood table if you're going to record. And then the microphone is on a mic stand, and there's a 10-pound throw plate, which is just like a 10-pound weight that looks like a disc on it, holding it down. And frankly, probably could use with another 10-pound throw plate on top of that one. But it is getting fairly crowded over here to have a microphone. My mic stand isn't like a full vertical one; it's a sideways one that swings. So and you really need that if you're gonna have it in front of you Otherwise, you're going to end up moving the position of the mic stand all the time, which is going to subtly affect how you sound. Whereas a swivel on a side horizontal mic just lets you spin it out of the way and spin it back. And while there might be a slight subtle difference between it being one angle closer to you or one angle further away from you, that's going to be way better than moving the whole microphone. So you really have to eventually work your way when setting up a sound recording system, which at this point, with a pop filter and a sound isolating thing and a Blue Yeti and all this setup, it's I could probably get a mid-level singer slash rapper, whatever. I guess rappers are singers. I don't know why I made a distinction there, but I could get like a mid-level professional in here to use my equipment, and it would be of an acceptable level. Of course, then configuring all the settings is a whole secondary game you have to mess with.
Maybe this time I can fade completely.
And you certainly don't need all of that to start off with. It's important to remember that when I started my channel, I had an Xbox One with the cheapest, comes free in the box Xbox One microphone headset with like one speaker on one ear and one headset microphone that was incredibly small and very low quality, and that worked just fine, like, to start off with. So you can fairly early on start streaming cheaply. Nowadays, almost everybody has a headset that comes with a cell phone. I bet there's a less than a $10 adapter you could use to plug in that headset into a computer. At a certain point, you probably have to be fairly close to your computer for some of those cords, whereas having a USB microphone allowed me to then get like 2 USB extension cords and have my microphone 10 feet away. But that whole setup really is a nightmare setup, and like I kind of need an office setup instead of a living room setup where the computer monitor would be right in front of me, and then the cords wouldn't have to be that long. But yeah, I've probably maxed out on what is a realistic amount of sound equipment for a streamer. But I certainly have seen other people go way crazier too, where they will intentionally they will intentionally move into using soundboards and professional mics, because that's just how it's done, whereas it doesn't really make a lot of sense in a lot of cases to do that. There we go. Yeah, because once you get into the range of using XLR microphones and soundboards, you're talking $3,000–4,000 on a good soundboard. You're talking $400 to $500 to $1,000 on a good microphone, and there might be a level of consistency there or quality there, but there's a lot of hype in professional audio equipment. Certainly, a lot of overpricedness. Having a soundboard where you can move up and down faders is not really that necessary. You can get a small one that has like 1 or 2 faders. The Rodecaster Rode Pro, I think, is probably the best middle of the ground solution if you're looking for something like that, where you are going to have something that feels like a professional level of equipment, but isn't incredibly expensive. And the Rodecaster Road Pro has some nice features that bigger soundboards don't. So yeah, that'd be probably the only soundboard I'd actually recommend. And even in the case of the Rodecaster, you still can plug in USB microphones. I'm fairly certain, one way or another, instead of XLR microphones. But even if you did have to go XLR, you're not going to go incredibly expensive there. Let's see.
Ooh-wee, this wasteland's a fixer-upper. This is pure craftsmanship.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Crown Trick. This is rated very positively. It seems like it is a roguelike with a lot of weapons. It's from Team 17 as the publisher, Next Studios. I'd say the screenshots actually don't do it as good of a service as the trailers do. As I've been watching this trailer here, you've got this animation here, you've got this girl with makeup on her eyes. She's got this big gun. It seems like it might be more of a positional turn-based combat roguelike, which is different. So, do I put this on the wish list or do I put this on the fall list? It's $15.99, English only. I think I put it on the wish list. It's already got enough positive reviews, which I feel like there's probably something to that. Okay. This.
I hope you enjoy my traps.
And then this. And then this.
Ready to witness my true strength? You're mine now.
And I've lost. Yeah, we're just straight up losing 3 times a row in arena game. Again, which is be nice not to lose. Be nice to get at least one victory. But whatever. You know, just go through the motions. Put in the time. There must be some professional sports people like that, where they're just like 3rd pick, 4th pick, 5th pick, whatever would be the right term, bottom of the draft, and they just go through the motions, trying to get the pinch and trying not to get hurt. That feels very much what I'm trying to do with Shadowverse at the moment. It's just like I know I'm not good enough. I know I don't have the cards, enough cards, or the cards in the right order to build good decks. I could go and cheat and look up meta decks and see if I could find something that matches close to what I have. I don't know if that's really cheating or just doing research. It's probably closer to doing research than cheating. But I don't want to spend the extra time doing that. That is kind of the problem with collectible card games in the first place. It almost seems like it might benefit digital collectible card games, or just collectible card games in the first place, for them to give one random card to every player that just does something really weird or really different, or to randomize the stats of cards. Interesting. That's an interesting thought, but it would be kind of impossible to play the game too if I was able to play a card and it was a 5/5 for 7 mana, but then somebody played the exact same card, but it was a 2 mana 1/1. Like, how would you ever be able to wrap your head around that? Moving on, we have a game here that's just an Asian title. It looks like an RPG game. I don't even know if I really will call it an RPG maker game, but English is not supported. 764, Chinese only. No big surprise there. Nothing even really too critical to say about something like that. It just seems to be your standard fare. These still. Go and
He's feeling hungry.
play this. Next we have Cybercube Battle. It really did feel like there was a lot of games that came out, and with that it does seem like we've also gotten an increase in these low effort games also. You know, we haven't seen a ton of the Unturned clones, because that was like the free demo that people were using, is they were just taking a pre-made demo project called, I think, Unturned or something like that, and then reselling it over and over again under different names. And yeah, we see that with Cybercube Battle for $13.99 English only. So there must have been at some point something Steam was doing to reduce that, the number of Unturned clones. Otherwise, people would still be trying to do that. Although it could also be that there literally was just one or two people selling all of those games under different aliases. Which I think is the problem a lot with Steam, is that they have a bad identification system that people are able to manipulate and pretend like they're different people. Whereas if Steam literally said, we need a picture of, we need your name, we need a picture of your government identification of some sort, we need to really identify that you are who you say you are. At that point, I think you would scare away a lot of people, and you would also probably be able to identify the same people over and over again. Because even if somebody was going to try and make a fake ID, it would... Well, no. If you could make fake IDs or steal other people's IDs, there's still a good chance you could fake people's identities. But I bet there is a system that they could improve on. Next we have a game on Steam called Rogue Aces Deluxe 2D Aerial Combat with local multiplayer death matches. That's a long title. You don't need all of that. It doesn't even look like a terrible game. $8.99, single player only, with shared split screens PvP. No online. 34 achievements. This doesn't look terrible. It's a bad name. It should just be called Rogue Aces Deluxe, but I'll put it on the follow list and we'll see. This.
Dragon and I are one.
And then this.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Come on, partner.
And then this.
What splendid brutality!
See, I don't know really what I'm even failing here on this, other than the Dragoncraft cards seem to all be built around overflow, and there's just not any cards in rotation that seems like they could really speed up the process of overflow happening. It's like it always seems to happen around the 7th turn, and then you're just kind of doomed. Next, we have a game on Steam called Airy, A-E-R-Y, Little Bird Adventure, which is positive so far. It kind of looks like more of a surreal journey, and we've seen 2 or 3 games announced just this year like this. And I'm not sure this is one of the top tier ones. It's $5.59 English, allegedly full audio, although how a bird has full audio I don't know. I'm going to put it on the fall list. But there is decent chances.
One arrow shower, and it's goodbye evil.
Darn it. If that had hit that with 3 and then I had attacked that,
Scrubbing needed. Just manage is hard to reach.
that would have saved me one more turn. But it wouldn't have really done anything otherwise. See, next we have Lawnmower Game Racing, which looks like it's a low effort racing game. The angle is wrong for a racing game because you can barely see ahead of you. You can see there's repetitive, probably pre-bought art assets. You can see visually for a racing game it does not look particularly interesting or polished. It's $1.19 English only with 34 achievements. Yep. There's nothing there that would make that go on the fall list. One more match to lose. Next we have a game called World War II Rising, which is already mixed. It looks to me like it's a low polygon asset flip first person shooting game, free to play. It says it's a MMO. I don't really believe that.
Bow before Dark Dragoon, ruler of the sky.
Who's this character?
Where my blade dances, heads roll.
Dione. Dione.
Every petal must fall eventually.
Alright, I got a pity victory. One pity victory.
Victory is exhilarating.
Well, at a certain point, maybe I should just do that as a way of saving some face. Just concede on the 5th turn to let somebody else win. Oops. Yeah, that's going to be an issue. See, now that there's slightly more metal on the sound isolation, so before hitting the pop filter was fairly hard to do, but I've lost a couple inches where I could potentially scratch my nose and then bring my hand back down. The way this sound isolation mount works is not great for a sideways mount. See, December 28th on this, we're at like level 14. And you need to get to level 25. Yeah, I'm still not sure it's really a good move here. To really want to try and get up to level 80 by December 28th. Because we're halfway through October now, and I really haven't made that much progress. You really would have to play quite a bit. And what were our missions? It was Sword, Shadow, and Rune and Dragon. We might as well play ranked. And we'll try and play this amulet stack and see how that works. Yeah, but the soundproof thing is just too heavy. It's a lot of metal, and just more metal on them already over heavy microphones. See, it mostly would boil down to the fact that my microphone is too
Don't underestimate me.
the microphone itself, the Blue Yeti, is way too heavy. There's no reason for it to be as heavy as it is. It's got like solid metal in it. Heavy means quality, subconsciously to a lot of people, certainly, but I don't think that it makes sense in the shipping. You see the new iPhones have actively gotten rid of their chargers, the wall wart chargers, and by getting rid of that, it saved them nearly half the amount of shelf space and weight, so it probably saved them quite a lot of money in just shipping and packaging to have more on the shelves. Of course, I think what they failed to do, Apple did, is they needed to say, we are willing to give you a free charger at any Apple store upon request, or that they would be willing to give a free charger or refund a free charger rebate any charger you have to buy under a certain price at any other store. That way it doesn't immediately feel like they are just cheaping out, which is exactly what they're doing. Let's see.
Now this is a work of art.
Yeah, Apple and iPhones have a danger of losing the feel of being a premium product, and have now eventually are dangerously close to just being a generic commodity, and it no longer feels like you're part of a elite club to own an iPhone, as it once did. Or at least that'd be my guess from somebody who only has Android phones.
Everything all right here?
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Get a Grip Ship, which looks like it is a platformer of some sort. This is the kind of thing I would want to see video of, because it looks like to me it's probably a frustration platforming game. Yeah. This does seem like this is a very difficult looking game. It probably isn't even that long, where you have to swing on things using a magnet. Yeah, I just can't see myself wanting to play this, but I'm going to be generous and put it on the fall list, because it does visually look polished enough. It's $12.74, and it's English only. So, yeah. The order in which some of these go are weird.
Never seen a reaction like that.
Hmm.
The uncharted desert awaits.
Do that. I'll just evolve that.
Come forth.
I'm ready for more. What do we have here?
Everything all right
And hit
here?
that. There we go. Need to hurry up. Like, today is a great day for me to just remember if they're to move forward. Here we have someone on the chat, Kokichi Omalaya. Like,
This ain't ideal, is it?
Kokichi. That's a weird, like, handle, because it kind of feels like it's Japanese, but not quite Japanese, maybe Korean, and then, or something like some other Asian, and then Ouma sounds more like African, and then Liar, Liar, is either a made-up name or it sounds almost French. Lier. But anyways, he says, I want to know if you're okay. In general, yes. Is anybody okay these days? No. Just, yeah, in general, as far as I know, I'm as physically and mentally as good as I'm gonna get, as far as being an insomniac and not really sleeping. And apparently it seems like I'm also just starting to get even worse than I used to be about losing my train of thought and
This match is mine.
causing
Wrongdoing? Me? Perish the thought.
and just
Drowned in light.
losing my train of thought and just stumbling and muttering. I feel like there was a brief point here where I could focus on playing the card game and talking, and maybe that's not really true. Maybe I always was in this case. Maybe it was always the case that I couldn't talk and look at video game news and focus on a game. Maybe the third thing just always was too much. And so I don't know how to really fix that other than to actually get rid of the collectible card game aspect, and I don't think I want to do that. That would be the right thing to do, frankly, is to just turn these live streams into a standard news process. But like standard news, I kind of would then need a writer and to have scripted things. Like, it's always worth remembering that the people on a news show are reading off of teleprompters and they don't have a clue what they're saying most of the time, and all they're doing is reading off a teleprompter. They're not thinking at all. Whereas when I'm streaming, I'm thinking about what the game is doing. I'm reading a second monitor over to the right, and I'm looking at the chat, and I'm trying to have general opinions and discussions. But it does feel like it's getting more and more random and more ADHD.
Witness the fury of my curse.
Like,
I am a curse.
moving on, we have a game on Steam called Chaos Party, which seems to be a top-down twin-stick shooter type game, if I was to guess. It does seem to be 4-player local only. It's early access. It does have online PvP. It's English and Chinese. I don't think there's enough visual polish on this game, though, to make it look like something I'd want to play. It seems like you have body parts that you attach to yourself to make your shooting eyeball even bigger. That seems weird, like a weird visual idea. Yeah. Of course, if somebody asks me if I'm okay, there is that inherent temptation, which would be a unkind thing to say. Yeah, I'm okay, except for financially, as a YouTuber who doesn't have enough subscribers to even make any money. But you could always support me on Patreon, or gift me a gift card on Steam, or gift me a game. But yeah, that's kind of a pointless ask these days, frankly, because there's just so many other people that are struggling way worse than me, financially, mentally, physically. I'm fine until I'm not, and I've been that way for pretty much the life of my YouTube channel. Like, I'm in a very unique situation where I can make this content until I can't, and I'm not in a situation where I could potentially do anything else anyways. So it was it really is either me sitting around in silence playing video games, which I've thought about doing that lately, is potentially just taking some me time and sit around and play games instead of making footage of me playing games. But I don't think I could go back to doing that. And when I do want just some personal time, what I'll usually do is work on my servers and work on other IT nerd stuff instead. And that seems to satisfy that urge a little bit better whenever I have it. But yeah. And I've have like a long history of people saying I sound tired, I look tired, and at a certain point I think it really took longer than realistic to realize that I probably do sound and look tired because of insomnia. Also, I think a few people frankly use that just as an insult. But I've just never been a high energy type person in the first place. So this is my normal, whether it's close to an average person's normal or not. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Tower of Mice, which looks to me like it is more of an asset flip game than anything that you would really want to play. It looks like it's a dungeon crawler game. They're calling it a roguelike. And I don't know if I'd really want to play a game where you're just fighting mice creatures for no real reason. English early access for $10.99. There's a couple of cutesy games where you play as a mouse, and I'm kind of cool with that. But even when you play as a mouse, generally you want to see a mouse and a rat and like a squirrel and several other smaller creatures. I don't think I just want to see the same a whole society of mice running around. So this is a spells card deck. So we're gonna try and reduce the cost of this card by increasing these spells. See, Gamatsu has an article here. World Flipper is coming to North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia and Korea in 2021. This is a video message from Cygames and Kakao Games. Cygames is the creators of Shadowverse. Although that doesn't inherently mean that they're good, because they also are the people that kind of censored Shadowverse in a few places. Although it's hardly like Shadowverse was a adult content game with its art. It's just that here and there a little bit of skin has been covered up, as is probably true for almost every collectible card game that starts with an Asian market. They decide to like lower skirt here and there, or cover up some cleavage. It seems to me like what World Flipper is some kind of pinball combination game. It's coming out for iOS and Android. It came out for iOS and Android in November of 2019, so there's been a delay. And it seems like this is just a video message. So a cell phone pinball game is not something that I've seen major success around.
Golly, it's chilly here. You like the cold?
So I'm not sure if the spin-off here makes sense. It seems like there's obviously magical creatures also around the pinball, and a lot of characters, which makes it feel like it's a gacha game in the sense that there will be microtransactions to get more characters.
Guy feels slushy.
But yeah, kind of like to see it in play. One thing you can say about the Koreans is this guy who's the executive director and the co-CEO of Cygames both look pretty awful. Like something you can say about hiring for talent instead of hiring for looks. Whereas if you have like the CEO, the former CEO and the current CEO Bowser of Nintendo of America, those are both positions where obviously the people who are the CEOs have done a lot of work on their appearance. Can I do more or less?
Is that a human?
Mana, come forth.
I'm done sticking my. I told you to leave.
This,
You like the cold?
and this,
Big trouble
and
now.
then this,
Golly, it's chilly here.
and in the turn. Yeah, but there was no gameplay footage, unfortunately. So I'm interested in World Flipper, but it is a cell phone game, so I can't be that interested. I might try it out. I'm quickly approaching to getting back down to just playing one cell phone game, and that's the lewd gacha game Destiny Child, which that still runs me ragged with as much content as it's constantly having you play on a daily basis. In fact, I'm actually having it run automatically now.
It'd have to be a clear day.
I feel slushy. I feel
Let's
slushy.
see. Next, we have a game on Steam here called
I feel
Prodigal,
sludgy.
which looks like a Game Boy game. It's kind of they're calling it a dating sim exploration. Prodigal? What's funny here is I usually don't like Game Boy looking games, but this one has more color in its palette than what you would actually have ever seen in a Game Boy game. Maybe a Game Boy Color game. Also, it seems like there's some nice animation here. It does seem like there's a lot of effort around making this art style. I'm still not sure I like this art style, but unlike many other games that sell themselves as looking like Game Boy games, it doesn't feel like there was a lack of effort in this. So I'm going to put this on the fall list. And this might very well be the exception. Either that, or I'm subconsciously just trying to find excuses to put it on the fall list because it says it's a dating game and I have an interest in seeing what they mean by that. Let's see. If I play this, it would do 3 damage to an enemy follower, which I think that probably is what we need to do.
Lightning storm. This match is mine. My bolts are too. I'll fry you to a crisp.
There we go. See, next we have a game on Steam called Myra and the Mystery of Alchemy. This is from Kagura Games, and it looks like it's a half visual novel anime girl game and half RPG. And you can see that they're trying really hard to put every screenshot as a character screenshot. They're kind of hiding the actual RPG game that you'd be playing in the background and highlighting the quality of visuals. $17.99, English, Japanese, and Chinese. This is deserving enough for a follow because you've got some polished visuals, but I suspect it would be a hard sell to want to play an RPG on a series you really don't know from a developer and publisher you don't really know. But maybe. See, games like this have to compete against the other games that exist. Let's see. Can we do this?
Spell looks so sweet, you'll get cavities.
And then this. To do that.
Oinky,
Honey
oinky.
glazed.
And then
You don't stand a chance.
do that.
Here comes the sugar rush.
Happy? Oinky.
sweet enough for you?
And I've still lost.
Wait, how did I lose?
Next, we have a game on Steam called Lone Archer, which seems like an archery game. I'm still looking for a good archery game, maybe in VR, maybe not. This is $4.99, which is a little too cheap for VR, but at a certain point, I think we may have just hit that level where $5 VR games are the new normal. This icon thumbnail's not very good either, but I'll put it on the fall list. But yeah, everybody tries to make these archery games, and everybody kind of fails. Well, so much for Runecraft. Guess we now need to try Swordcraft or Shadowcraft. Let's see. Next we have a game called Boxing Coach, which looks like a VR game. So it's kind of like shadow boxing in VR. There might be something to this. Like I fully believe that boxers would be the type of people that would buy VR headsets and potentially try to use software to help them. But at a certain point also, don't you need a spotter to watch your form? Also, and don't you want that gym experience of being around other people somewhat? Like I would say professional boxers and wrestlers who go to gyms like that are probably way more looking for that gym experience and looking for sparring partners than say somebody that owns a 24-hour fitness gym pass and they're just going to work out on treadmills and things like that, which are very solitary actions that you really don't want other people around anyways. This looks interesting. Early access VR for $8.99, English and Chinese. It might be a attempt at a Chinese scam, and there may literally just be one image here or one dance, and maybe the moves aren't well thought through. It's not like you're moving very fast either, and that is something that that should be considered also. Is that there might very well be a limitation on how fast a game, a VR game can input your inputs of swinging your arms, and that may be a limiting factor, particularly in boxing when you're trying to let a pummel of blows go through. Come on, game. Keep on playing. Sorry, I'm talking to my other game. I'm literally doing like 4 different things at the same time. Even for me, this is a little crazy. TechRaptor has a review here for 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, which looks like it's a beat 'em up game. Visually, it doesn't look polished enough. Here's a great example of just not thinking your color palette out. To have such a brown background with then brown characters in front. They give it a 9.0. Interesting. 9 Monkeys of Shaolin is a nostalgic look back on old school beat 'em up games that improved by charming visuals and light RPG elements. Engaging combat, beautiful world design, varied enemy types. Cons are some frustrating enemies, and retro isn't for everyone. The beat 'em up genre is a genre that is a big question mark in my head, frankly. I'm not sure if I really want to play beat 'em up games, and if I was going to play beat 'em up games, I'm not sure that I would want to. I'm not sure that I want to to really play play something that is just generic as a beat 'em up, instead of playing something like the Simpsons arcade game that was beat 'em up, or Streets of Rage.
I'll give you what into the wrong forest, friend.
And I looked at the Streets of Rage games, and they frankly didn't look interesting enough to want to play.
Music to your ears, am I right?
Like,
You're mean.
there was one newer game that came out, and I can't forget, River City Girls. Yeah, River City Girls was the only one that really looked like something that would interest me.
I shall give birth to a new world.
Moving on, Gamatsu has a new PlayStation Store. It's going to launch October 21st to the 2016th on desktop and October 28th on mobile. This will include removing PS3, PSP, and Vita content via purchase via browser. And so you can only get that content directly on the console, and I imagine that there will be some changes there for PS3, PSP, and Vita content also only being available on PS3 consoles and not available on PS4 or PS5 consoles.
You were done for.
Which
Put your lips
that's
into each prayer.
definitely seems like that's the direction they're going.
Mean.
Is just to tighten everything up and get rid of a lot of legacy things. Let's see, barrel right.
Does this outfit make me look too
Want to play?
Let's see, giant skull.
And that concludes today's sermon.
Gamatsu has an article here. Game rental shop Gamefly has been acquired by the Alliance Entertainment Group, which already owns companies like Funko, Fantasy Flight, and Wizards of the Coast
Must have faith.
as partners. I guess it doesn't own them directly outright. There is probably a small number of people in the United States that still use Gamefly. I could see certainly if you are not in a city and it takes you an hour to get to a city, it's not likely that you're going to be allowed a lot of opportunities to bring to go and buy new games. And also, if you're not living in a city, then you're probably also in a situation where
Thus
the
world begins.
the internet is pretty bad. So getting games on disc by mail may be your only real opportunity to get video games.
The world
But
cycles on.
that's not the majority of people. The majority of people have Walmarts or some kind of store near them if they want to get disc games, and the majority of people have decent enough internet that they can download games. So Gamefly really is one of these companies that will just every year become less and less of a good offering for almost everybody.
Does this outfit make me look too homey?
I'll show you.
Let's see. Apparently, they're adding movies, game accessories, consoles, and other collectibles to the Gamefly digital channel. So, I imagine people with Gamefly will start getting advertisements for a bunch of non-video game related stuff for better or worse.
Yum yums to fill
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Ares, which looks like one of those space games, although oddly it also seems like it's a military game. This really does seem like it's a real-time strategy just across multiple different planes. Dominate the battlefield,
Better than it looks.
and then end up on planets, and that seems crazy. $29.99, English only. Visually, this just doesn't look consistent enough to be something I want to play. Also, if it's a real-time strategy, the idea that there's such a lack of heads-up display seems unbelievable. Let's see.
May we walk hand in hand till death do us part.
Here we go. What do we want to do? That. And then that.
What's for
I
Dende?
long
And
for
then that.
you.
Hmm.
Wind, grant them Isn't courage. Love amazing?
Oh, that did a massive amount of damage to him. I don't know what just happened there that caused that, but
Such a lovely couple.
that was crazy. Storm, burial right. Let's see. What does heretical helpies do? Discard a card.
Dark Lord, is that you?
So now he'll just discard a card every turn. Random. Maybe that'll save the day. Maybe, maybe not. Seems like they had a whole strategy here. And I was not involved in thinking that one through.
Feast upon me!
Right.
Stop!
Forced resurrection.
Everyone,
You've
work
walked
starts
into
at
the
sunset.
wrong forest, friend. Lick me whiskers!
CheckRaptor has another advertisement for Nutaku's newest game, Hire Sexy Cam Girls in Nutaku's Chick Empire, which definitely is not safe for work. It seems to be like a tower, tiny tower, like idle game, clicker game, where you get bigger and bigger towers and rooms, and there's cam girls doing cam girl things, rather explicit cam girl things.
It tastes better than it looks.
Still don't really feel like any of the Nutaku games are quality enough, though. Like, if ever there was a petition or campaign out there, like the improving adult video games quality, probably should be something people would go for. But frankly, people don't pay for it, so you get what you pay for.
Kinda haunted. No, literally.
Let's see. Moving on, we have a game called WKSP Rumble, which I think is probably a Russian beat 'em up troll game. I was to guess.
Can I haunt you too?
100 real employees of a real ad agency. Free to play. English, Portuguese, Brazil. Like, why would you make a fighting game around employees? That seems just ridiculous. Like, nobody cares except for the people that maybe work in an office, and even then, making a fighting game where you're having your employees fighting together is probably not a smart move. Just people are going to be upset by that, and it's certainly not going to sell. Let's see, Gamma Sutra retweeted an old article here, The Undying Allure of Metroidvania, 2 pages even, and usually they aren't. Which, yeah. I would say Metroidvania almost is appealing to a lot of people in the fact that it is just so incredibly rare that you get a good one, and there just have been some foundational styles of really good Metroid games and Castlevania games to establish that genre, and then it seems like people have pretty much never been able to reach those heights again. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Vital Signs Emergency Department. It's tagged as a realistic educational game. There might be something to this, or this could just be a low effort kind of almost strategy text game. I assume what you're doing is you're just triaging a lot of people. It's free, but then there's a massive amount of DLC, which really gets it up to $39.99. And frankly, I think such a deceptive way of selling your game kills it. Also, this could easily just be an asset flip game too. Like, these could just be stolen images of people, and nothing could be medically accurate, which inherently, if you were studying to be a doctor or nurse, playing a game like this would probably do more harm than good, and that really leaves games like that to really only work for high school kids and earlier, and even then it's probably establishing some bad information in your head. Like, there is a real danger in education, which is what it's selling itself as, of establishing the wrong facts and then having somebody take those wrong facts as true throughout their entire career. There already is a major problem in medicine where people learn things one way and then they never learn anything new, better ways that have been discovered. Even though doctors and nurses are required to get massive amounts of continuing education to maintain their license, they still tend to not really learn anything and instead just regurgitate their education. Well, I think particularly for doctors and nurses, you just have to sit through seminars, so they just don't pay attention in the seminars. I don't think they're even tested for comprehension or anything like that after it. So they just don't pay attention, and they think they're right. There's something that happens between going through college and being shown that they know absolutely nothing, and then graduating 4 to 10 years later and thinking they know absolutely everything, and there's nothing any more to learn. I don't know why that is how it goes, but that does seem like that's how it goes.
What do we have here?
Next, we have a game on Steam called Death Circus, which is a kind of horror walking simulator game. It has an interesting mechanic. Instead of a flashlight, You have glow sticks that you have to shake to regain light, but it really does seem like you're just kind of walking in very linear paths, and that there really isn't much of a game there. It's early access, it's free to play, it's English full audio. So check it out if it looks interesting to you. I don't think it really is quality enough or it's going to be big enough of a game.
What do we have here? What do we have here?
There we go. Next we have a game on Steam called Farm and Puzzle, which seems to just be a mowing puzzle game. I don't know if there's a game here. I've seen something like this before, once before, and I thought maybe there's a puzzle experience there, but I'm not sure there really is. And inherently, the idea of you've got to mow every single square and not overlap is just inconsistent with what mowing a grass really would be, which is just do it the most fast and efficient way and don't go in weird circles and spins. Particularly on a tractor, I'm not sure if you would significantly reduce its life by turning a lot. Tractors are kind of designed to go in straight lines more than anything else.
You are done for.
That probably wouldn't hurt it that much, but
Ready for more. What do we have here?
well, you'd probably never be able to prove it hurt it that much. But yeah. Yeah, even as a mini game in some other kind of game, the idea of mowing and making sure you hit every square is a little too generic. This is $1.79 English only. Definitely looks like something that could have been a mobile game. That just doesn't belong on the fall list.
Best of luck to you. Best of luck to you.
Next we have a game called Sin Therapy, which is tagged as a visual novel. And, well, it loads. It's $14.99. English full audio with Spain Spanish, which you usually don't see Spain Spanish visual novels at all. Okay. Let's do this.
Got a job to do.
And then this one, and this one. Getting rid of that one. And then get rid of that one.
My loyalty is ironclad.
And then we'll go ahead and evolve this one.
Harder armor. Steel yourself.
Hit that one.
Big trouble now.
In the turn.
My loyalty is ironclad.
It really is a game changer card. So, Sin Therapy. Seems like you're going through therapy. It definitely is more of a Western animation style. I'm not going to inherently say it's bad, though. A little dark here. A lot of text taking up the screen in that sequence. Just all text here. All text there. I'll put this on the fall list and see if people like it. It has a unique factor in that it's a Spanish visual novel, so if I go heavy into visual novels and don't just potentially cover a small number of them, which so far I've covered one, and even that one seems way too long for me. A Spanish visual novel and their take on telling a story from a more Spain Western perspective sounds more interesting than yet another dating visual novel romance story from Japan. Next we have a game called 10 Milligram Slasher. Interrupted,
Armor has been pierced.
which is a campfire horror story interpreted by your girlfriends. Interesting.
Pierced.
You have like 3 girlfriends or 3 girls who happen to be your friends. It's $1.99 English only. It's an interesting idea as far as telling a story and then having people interrupting you. Seems like there's a whole bunch of games that are starting with the 10 milligram title, which might mean that this publisher is kind of flooding the Steam store, or maybe they're just trying to do branding. Let's see. With the little logo, they seem like they're just doing what would make sense. I'm seeing one game that's marked positive though, and none of the other ones seem to have gotten any reviews at all, so it's a sad statement on relevancy, I know.
Fight together, everyone, for our future.
It all ends here.
I will support the
Let's come
banner.
over here and
Carry
play.
on.
Let's speed things up. Too slow.
Gotta clean up my shop.
So yeah, I'll put 10 milligrams slasher interrupted on the fall list, and I'll think about it, but it really is a case of there just being a lot of losers out there. No offense, but just people that don't get that big break and are seemingly trying. Apparently they are kind of flooding the Steam market shop though, because here we have 10 milligrams sealed estate, which looking at this game, this does look pretty low quality at $1.99, which makes me question the previous game. But that seems to be the only 2 games they released it. So releasing 2 games on the same day still feels like bad advertising. For all the branding they seem to be trying to do,
If I fall,
how they would have missed that move, I don't know. Next we have a game on Steam called Ziggy, which this is just a clone of a arcade game. Which it does not look better than the arcade game. Where you have to jump and try and fill out everything. Maybe there's a little bit more to it because I am seeing these words. So that it's like a typing version of that arcade game for $4.79 English only. That doesn't make the game better though.
I need more
Like
fear.
that arcade game wasn't good in the first place, and then throwing typing in.
How's that?
My loyalty is ironclad.
Okay.
Die, cretin.
See you later.
50-50 shot here. Can we do something to reduce?
Lovely day for a fight.
Got it.
Loyalty is ironclad.
I got lucky there. Next we have a game on Steam called House in the Silence, which is tagged as a traditional roguelike. It's suffering from some major dark screenshot syndrome, kind of a lack of a hub. This does feel like it's just a low effort game. Early access, $13.49 English only. That's way too expensive. 3 damage to an enemy follower. And ward. Okay. This.
Steel
hit
yourself.
that,
Steel yourself.
and hit that. Yeah, House and Silence. In the House of Silence is not going to make it to the fall list.
Guess it's my turn to do field work.
TechRaptor has this article that I'm leaving open. 4 free Sega 60th anniversary games have been revealed. It seems like you can only get them on the 18th, and that's it. Armor of Heroes, which, and then Endless Zone, and then Streets of Karucha, and then Golden Axe, a canceled prototype, and at somehow somewhere I think you have to go to maybe Sega60th.com to get the keys for Steam. I don't think you can just get them off of Steam, and that might be what I'm dropping the ball here, is that they want you to register. And honestly, I don't know if it really is worth even putting in an email to get these games. TechRaptor has an article here. Pokemon Go Grubhub event launches special prizes, which Pokemon Go, I guess, is still doing things to try to maintain relevance. I imagine at this point a significant amount of people who were obsessed with Pokemon Go have since moved on to other things, because you just couldn't be walking around doing all those doing all the things Pokemon Go wanted you to do in the first place. Although maybe people will get right back into it now that people seem to think the pandemic is over, even though it really isn't. TechRaptor has an article here. The Secret of Monkey Island cut content to be revealed. The Video Game History Foundation explores source codes and hidden secrets. Yeah, for instance, I don't recognize this art at all. You have to get tickets for $10 for a 30th anniversary live stream for the Video Game Heritage Foundation. That seems like they're kind of desperately trying to make some money. That's interesting, but also anything that's shown or talked about will just get repeated by the news. There's literally no reason why you'd want to pay for the tickets to do a virtual live stream. Pretty much in any scenario. That sounds insane. Yeah, I wonder if this motivational speaker scammers are going to try and do live stream type events. Well, they probably have been doing that, but usually they try to have enough hype man and audience in there in the room to make them sound like they know what they're saying. Moving on, we have a game called Rhythm Race, which looks like it is just a line rider music game and doesn't look like it's very visually polished. It's early access for $2.99, English only. Nothing there would interest me. Maybe we see the beginning of the end here. Here we have Noita, apparently now finally out of the early access. This is really one of those games that was hyped by the mainstream video game journalist groups, and I almost said Illuminati there, but that's not a fair description of them, although Cabal probably is an accurate description of them. But I wouldn't be surprised if nobody really even mentions that it's now out of early access. This is the game that had a lot of liquid physics to the whole world, and there was just a lot of splash and damage and effects. I'm still not sure I really want to play this game because it, at its core, feels more like it is a too much of an action platformer and not enough of a storyline game. Too much of a sandbox game and not enough of a storyline style game. But I'll leave it on the fall list and think about it later. Next we have Space Crew, which I guess that came out of early access also, or it's getting re-released for some reason. Like, Space Crew is the sequel to Bomber Crew. People were happy about Bomber Crew, so there's a reason to put it on the fall list at least. $13.99, a bunch of languages. Not very good screenshots there, but Bomber Crew is another one of those examples of games that was hyped for a brief time and then kind of has now dropped out of being relevant. I had baselessly speculated that maybe some of the people at Giant Bomb would have been fired in that Giant Bomb has been bought out by a different company and is no longer part of CBS Interactive. GameSpot, same thing. CNET, same thing. And the announcement came out that Abby Russell, who was the only female on the Giant Bomb crew at all, and acted as the person that was just running the soundboard and running the video mixers. She announced that she was gonna leave the company and not transition over. She had never really been a gamer. I mean, there's no kind way to say that. Like, she had been really boiled down to the stereotypical the stereotypical female gamer that just plays The Sims and plays a few other games. She does, I think, play games. She's not just like, oh, a face they hired. Although, frankly, she could have easily just been a face they hired because it wasn't really ever her job to review games. But you kind of knew she wasn't that interested when she had an entire Beast Caps episode with none of the male normal people, and she brought in like 3 female other people to talk, and that is almost certainly something that she had a goal to accomplish before she left, and they let her do that. But yeah, I imagine it won't drastically change the level of content for Giant Bomb East, because the level of content for Giant Bomb East has already been just lowered to basically nothing anyways. They seem to make like 1 or 2 videos a week at most between 3 people. Well, it was 4 people, and with the help of Jeff Bacalar from CNET. So none of them seem like they're really doing any real work. And the same as for Giant Bomb West, they barely make any content anymore either. Maybe all that content is hidden behind their paywall. That could also be the factor. Let's see. Alright. We're gonna keep this one, and this one. Get rid of that. I didn't need to do that, actually. Because this was going to just destroy that anyways. Next we have a game listing for Raj and Ancient Epic, which apparently the broadcast default title by developer is broken. This is rated very positively and it seems to have enough reviews on it now for it to be believable. This is, I believe, the first like mainstream Indian company to make a video game, and I have a bit of trepidation that the first game made by an Indian company is just treading on Indian lore and I suppose religious lore, but also that it's kind of Indian culture too. I mean, at a certain point, you're going to get into some really nasty arguments about what modern Indian culture is, and it's going to be people having to deal with corrupt governments and working in call centers and just hustling and living overcrowded in dirty lands, and it's hard to depict modern India as a land of beauty in a large swaths of it. Conflicts with Pakistan, conflicts with China, arguably maybe not their fault on either one of those, or only about half of their fault. So, yeah. But I guess at a certain point too, if you were making a modern game set around what modern United States culture is, you are making something like Call of Duty at that point in militarization. But that has nothing to do with this game. I am glad to see this succeeds, or is succeeding. I hope that the developers now go and make just a standard video game that doesn't feel the need to be 100% around Indian culture. It can definitely have Indian flavor. I don't have a problem with that, and certainly they should put their own personality into their games, but we don't want to see India become like China, where almost half of all Chinese games are just doing the great novels of China over and over again, and it's just the same repeated content to a near propaganda level, or an actually is at a propaganda level. Speaking of China, like NetEase was apparently fined for not censoring one of their game's chats enough, removing words like Hong Kong and Taiwan, and I'm sure there's a larger list of things, Tiananmen Square, things like that. Let's see, moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Ring of Pain, which is tagged as a dungeon crawler roguelike card game. Interesting. And it seems like the cards kind of spin in a circle when you're playing them, or the enemies are cards that are in a ring, thus the name Ring of Pain. That's an interesting idea as a way to visually depict it. It's $17.99. It's single player only. Bunch of languages. I'll put this on the follow list, although it already is rated very positively. I feel like my mouse batteries are dying. Which is funny because I felt like my keyboard batteries were dying yesterday. So I don't know if the receiver is just getting bad signal or what. Probably should transition to wired. Just wired everything. Wired keyboard and mouse, wired microphone, of course, wired. Well, everything else is wired, isn't it? Yeah, but I'll put Ring of Pain on the follow list. Next, we have a game on Steam called World Soccer Strikers 91, which looks like it is a soccer game with little pixel art. I don't know what it is about this that interests me, but it visually does look interesting. Because this does kind of feel like it is a arcadey style of playing soccer. It's $5.09, which is a weird price, and it's early access. I'm gonna put this on the fall list, and almost certainly I'll come back a different day and question my sanity as far as why I even bothered to have that on the fall list. But yeah, that doesn't look bad. So here's that game, Armor of Heroes, which is free. So
Tactical retreat.
So I'll put that on the list. And now it's in my Steam account. So that was just available for purchase. Interesting. Does kind of seem like it is just going in circles as far as
Speed things up. Too slow.
as far as how you get those free Sega games. Borderlands 3 is getting a second season, a season 2, season pass 2, which I really don't feel like people are still playing Borderlands 3, so I kind of have to question if this is 2K or Gearbox saying, kind of getting rid of all the content that would have been in a theoretical Borderlands 4. I wouldn't really be surprised if Randy Pitchford is going to try and lay off and shut down all of Gearbox and take the money and run as much as possible. It's been rumored and almost certainly and almost completely confirmed that he was trying to sell Gearbox, or was in discussions to sell Gearbox. I wouldn't be surprised if that's really what's going to happen there. But there really is no other reason I could see why you'd want to add a season pass to Borderlands 3 unless it's just an experiment to see, well, we had that Epic Store exclusivity, and that Epic Store exclusivity limited the number of people that were actually playing during the launch window, so we now are trying to have a secondary launch window,
I need more fear, more terror.
Got a job to do.
which I would believe that.
How's that?
You've got to be
Die,
kidding me.
cretin.
That's
My
enough for
loyalty
me.
is ironclad.
You're done for.
Harder armor, stronger armor.
That's
My
enough for
loyalty
me.
is
There we go.
ironclad.
No. See, also on the 15th, they said, squad up and prepare yourself for a new way to play into the Designers Con launching on November 10th. You get additional skill trees for each Vault Hunter and a brand new game mode called Arms Race. This is part of Season Pass 2, which is a link directly to 2K Games that didn't link the Borderlands
Armor has been pierced.
2.
Mother, father.
The second half of Season Pass 2 Director's Cut is planned to release spring in 2021. So the first part is called Designer's Cut. The second part is called Director's Cut. It doesn't seem like there's going to be actual storyline expansions around that idea.
More terror.
Got a job to do.
How's that? Die, cretin.
That's
My
enough for
loyalty
me.
is ironclad.
Let's evolve here.
Won't be long now.
Stronger armor! Steel yourself!
And in the turn.
My loyalty is
Yep.
ironclad.
So yeah, I just don't.
What brings you here, miscreants?
I just don't know why you would release these two newer elements and call it a season pass season 2 instead of just calling it a free update, or
Pleasure was all mine.
in a different way, just emphasizing that they were giving these free content to our loyal fans and trying to get people to keep on playing. Alright, we're now down to Runecraft and Dragoncraft, and let's switch over to Unlimited and see if we can maybe get more progress that way. 20 vials, which is, we now realize that 20 vials is a ridiculous amount. We also forgot to do our standard card pack openings, which, yeah, I want to open a pack almost every single day. Maybe back on Monday we'll do an open 6, but I don't know if we will. I think we may very well just be done with open 6s at this point. I don't think it benefits you as well as it should. Susan Wojcicki, a couple of weeks ago, the CEO of YouTube, went on an interview with CNN, and then almost immediately now, oh yeah, I should just click the skip button every time. That's way more helpful information. And then almost immediately they have now started shutting down QAnon pages and more, and they're just stepping up who they're letting on their site and who they aren't. I mean, I can't really disagree with them. Yeah, I really haven't gotten any tickets lately. We are just done with Open 6. I can't disagree with them with some of these conspiracy crazy video channels, things like that, but also you just kind of are justifying every paranoid belief that the information is true and the information is being suppressed when you do go out of your way to silence people and embrace censorship, and you lose more of YouTube's soul by censoring a video more than you do leaving up a video, particularly if it's a video that only one person is going to see anyways. Yeah. So it's a delicate balance. And ironically, as a video game content creator, that there could be a scenario here where I, at one point, am one of the last 100,000 channels that are still allowed to be on YouTube because everything else has just been censored and disallowed. But even if at that point they did let me back into the YouTube partner program and I was making money, I'd probably be making so small amounts of money because the vast majority of the audience will have left for some new service, which we are very much long overdue for there to be a new service to replace YouTube. Of course, there's really not anywhere to go. I heard of a new Twitter competitor that was launched this week. I don't know if it was launched this week, but I heard about it this week. And it sells itself immediately as being just more censorship and more nanny state than Twitter is. And I'm like, I don't think there's anybody that wants to leave Twitter because they think Twitter is toxic, that's going to be satisfied with whatever this new replacement, this baby-fied version of Twitter is. It really just goes to show how the SJWs that are in charge of tech companies don't understand what the rest of the world, the more conservative people, the anti-SJWs want, or even people in the middle that don't even know what SJW means. They're not out there thinking, oh, Twitter's so toxic. In the same way that there really aren't as many people as you think that just spend every day hating Facebook, as much as there are people out there that say, hey, I've got this under control. I've blocked the people I don't want to see. And I'm seeing the people I do want to see. So, like, Facebook for me works perfectly fine. I don't have any problems with it. And Twitter for me works perfectly fine because I've been able to curate the experience I want to see.
You are not prepared.
Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Promethea, which looks like a pretty walking simulator game. I wonder if this is from the developer of some of those other pretty walking simulator games. Yeah, a game like this you really can just put on the follow list and see if people like it or not. Particularly if they're telling you straight up that it's just a walking simulator and you're just going to be looking at what could be asset flips or could be actual architecture. It really feels like there should be some kind of trade union where you could hire out people that have the skills. That worked terribly.
Burning flames will freeze.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
See what we want to do.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Your scales. Get back here.
Yeah, there probably are some good 3D environmental artists out there that really don't need to learn how to program or write stories or edit audio or compose audio. And if there was some kind of association, some kind of guild where people got together and said, hey, I'm really good at building environments, and somebody else says, hey, I've got a really good idea, that you could form a kind of co-op. At a certain point, what I'm describing is the formation of a company, but frankly, you kind of either have to have a lot of money to form a company or a lot of contacts and resources, and you need somebody that's actually just good at business to run a company. And I would imagine most game developers are not particularly good at business.
You won't even die. I'll be home soon.
Bop and roll.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Long Path, which this is another one of those games that looks like is a Game Boy game. No heads-up display. I don't think I'd want to play this. It's early access, $1.49, English only. Is there something here? I mean, I'll put it on the follow list because I think I just don't have enough emotional energy to say no, but Long Path really is not impressive. And then, ironically, we have a game called Duck's Wrath as the next game. And that definitely looks like it's nothing. It's free, so the price is right. English, French, and Spanish. It was Dragoncraft or Shadowcraft, I believe, that we needed to win with. Next we have Crystal Caves HD, which this is an old Apogee game. And it's not really a game I'd want to play, but it's an old enough and relative enough game to own. Although, arguably not at $7.99. It's English only. This is another great example of where the copyright for games like this should have expired a lot earlier. Like, nobody that made this game probably still works for Apogee. I imagine Apogee is just a holding company that doesn't make any games at all at this point. But this game also has been effectively abandoned for 10, 20 years. And at a certain point, I would say, particularly in software, if you're not maintaining, updating, or at least continuously selling your software for 5 years, at that point it probably should be open source or public domain, not open source. Although that is an interesting idea too, to force things to go into open source. But yeah, the speed at which software development moves is way faster than the book. Like, Shakespeare's plays have gotten some slight spin-off to them, but I don't think there's been any real actual rewrites of Shakespeare's plays. So it's been very consistent in what it is and what people want from it. Whereas Windows 3.1 does not benefit society at all in 2020. Not really. But Shakespeare's play still would.
This is what love looks like.
I don't know if that makes full sense to people, but yeah. Shakespeare's, yeah. Hamlet, let's just say Hamlet. Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet's a better example, was beneficial to society, even if it wasn't really appreciated by society when it came out on day one. It was just as beneficial to society and is now appreciated by society in 2020. Windows 3.1, for instance, was beneficial to society and appreciated somewhat when it came out, but it has no benefit to society now, which then breaks the argument what should be the factor for something to go into public domain, and it's supposed to be what benefits society. Would Windows 3.1 being in the public domain right now benefit society more than it being copyrighted by Microsoft? Absolutely. Would the same scenario be the same 5 years after Windows 3.1? Absolutely.
What do you think you're doing?
Yeah, pretty much after Windows 95 came out, maybe 5 years after Windows 95 came out, had Windows 3.1 been public domain, there would have been people that would have benefited more, society would have benefited more from that than it's still theoretically being copyrighted even to this day. Because almost certainly then people would have been able to make more emulators of 3.1 and build their own operating system with the foundational ideas that are in Windows 3.1. Things like Linux very well may have run better around a system like that. 2 shadows. Of course, I really don't have enough time to go on to a copyright public domain rant today. We still got plenty of games. Here we have a game on Steam called G-String, which you would think that was just an adult game by the title, but no, it doesn't seem like that is. Actually, I don't know where the phrase G-string comes from as a G-string bikini. This is $17.99. English full audio with a bunch of subtitles and a bunch of other languages. I'm gonna put it on the fall list. It kind of looks like an older game that's being re-released, but I also don't recognize it, so let's see. If I play this and play this, I have to evolve. So we might as well do this. And then do this.
Is that a human?
And then do this.
I'm done sticking my head in the clouds.
And then hit that. Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Jungle Knight, which just looks like an infinite runner game. Low effort. English not supported. Free to play, but then DLC for $74.99. Chinese only. If ever you needed an example of a money laundering attempt, this is it. And there really is no reason why this should not highlight red flags. Like anything over, I would say $5, frankly, as far as DLC, should be a red flag. Anything over 200% of the initial cost, which the initial cost is 0, so that should be a bit of a red flag. Or maybe you set a minimum there of less than $5 for free-to-play games. Don't get red flag, but clearly somebody should have seen that and said, no, that's not realistic. Nobody's going to pay $74.99. That's such a massive amount of money, too. It's more than what you would pay for a AAA unless you're getting a AAA deluxe edition of something. But even without the pricing shenanigans, a game like that should have been red flagged, and somebody should have seen that that doesn't work, or that doesn't make logical sense. And even if it is just a crazy person that thinks they can make a lot of money, that crazy person you should not go in business with. There is seemingly an argument to be made about curating the people you do business with. And at a certain point, that is just a censorship argument again, because that's exactly what YouTube is doing. But yeah, there definitely are some crazy people on YouTube that should not have been allowed to be on YouTube, including the crazy person who actively tried to shoot YouTube employees, which people kind of forget about that. And it was like, well, we know she was crazy and we know that what she did was wrong, but also everybody's pissed off at YouTube, so I kind of can't be that sympathetic that yeah, I can't really be that sympathetic to a person that to YouTube employees, considering all the garbage they've put people through and all the hassle. Next, we have another low-effort game on Steam here called Cyborg Earthworm, which is just Snake in a very ugly-looking interface. Early access for $14.99, English only. Yep. It really feels like the floodgates were just allowed open. That apparently this whole week somebody was curating games, and then somebody overruled them and said, quit curating games and put them all out for sale. Or somebody said, we need money, so put everything out. But I mean, you just don't know. It could be that there was a new employee that just greenlit a bunch of games. Next, we have a game called The Mouse and the Cheese. I wouldn't be surprised if there is some like somebody working in a Indian call center that is just looking at all these games and improving them for Steam, and that they've just shopped out all the work to cheap labor. This looks like a bad version of Pac-Man. Really? It's $1.99, English only. Nothing there of interest. I did Runecraft and Dragoncraft. I need to make sure I know which one I'm supposed to be playing. I played one day and got 2 or 3 victories, and then I looked at the daily quest and realized that I was playing the wrong hero class. Yeah, I apparently got Pac-Man Championship Edition 2 for free. And at a certain point, I'm thinking that I might find some justification in my head to just stop knowing that I got games for free and stop labeling if I got games for free, because there's definitely a decent number of them that I have just not labeled as I've gotten free. And effectively, if I don't know, it can't subconsciously affect my opinion on a game. Disclosure is better than not disclosure, though, so I really am just would have to find some really good justification for laziness, because that's really what that all just boils down to, is me not keeping good records as far as that. It's not like I've gotten a ton of free games, and the only times I do get free games is because they're free on Steam, which is the exact same experience other people would have. And it's hardly like I'm keeping a spreadsheet for every game I've purchased or what it cost. At a certain point, I really am only evaluating games based on how much of your time do they take up, not how much of your money. Because money is a more variable quantifier, as some people have a lot of money and some people have no money, whereas everybody has the same 24 hours a day. Of course, you can often, if you have a lot of money, you get a lot more free time.
Maybe, just maybe, this magic will help.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dragon Extinction, which just looks like a dungeon crawler. Visually, it's way too red tinted, and yeah, I just don't like the look of it. It looks probably low polygon and asset flipped also. It's $17.99 English only and early access. I just don't see anything.
I embrace all manner of spellcraft.
In the turn. Gamatsu has an article here. The PlayStation 5 voice chat report functionality has been detailed. Report verbal harassment with up to a 40-second long audio clip, which effectively means that even in private chats, from what I understand and what I've heard, it will be always recording you and always listening to you. Which, I mean, at a certain point, you kind of knew that. This was added to the PlayStation 4 terms of conditions also, because people will be potentially playing with PlayStation 5 and people.
Coming at you.
This certainly is not something that you want to see abused, but it also is something that people could have always done. They could have always had a microphone or a recorder plugged into their TV, and thus were capable of potentially recording people. And Sony sneakily could have been recording a lot of things too. Generally, I think for most gamers, you don't want chat on ever anyways. You are getting into a weird realm if you do get into chat. Group chat is one thing, certainly, amongst your friends. And if people start getting flagged or suspended because of the things they say amongst their friends, they're going to be very upset. But once you get into public chat, it is just a massive issue, certainly. And you just never know where those recordings might end up or what might end up on those recordings, which is also a concern. Here we go.
Mana, come forth.
Moving on, we have a Gamma Sutra article here. Oculus Quest 2 has quietly dropped support for Oculus Go games. I think we'd already heard that was going to happen, but I guess we can reconfirm it. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Until Last Breath. Looks like it's a first-person shooter with a level of polish here that actually looks good enough to at least follow. $5.99, English, full audio, allegedly. At this point, I'm just saying full audio allegedly on everything. Because you just never know what full audio really means. They need to get rid of that metric and have every game recertified that it has live voice acting. Full voice acting or partial voice acting.
Lightning storm. This match is mine.
I'm gonna lose well before he runs out of cards.
It'll work this time, maybe.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Medulla, which looks like a
Did I lose?
platforming game with some surreal imagery. It's tagged as a puzzle platformer. This is one of those games that's just so surreal, I'm just not sure, so I'm gonna put it on the fall list. $6.99, English, and a bunch of other languages. I don't know how long I've been going because I forgot to turn on my timer, but let's make sure we get all the news at the very least. We may leave some games for Monday, it probably wouldn't hurt. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Blizzard is winding down development on StarCraft 2 after over a decade, which, okay. They had been they'd been just kind of tweaking things, I think, for StarCraft 2. I don't think they've added any storyline content or any actual levels. Now would be the time to kind of abandon StarCraft 2, as esports are probably not doing too much at the moment, and I don't think StarCraft 2 has been a major esport for a while. It's also very possible that they have something called StarCraft 3 that they want to release. It's also very possible that there's just nobody that works at Activision Blizzard anymore that even cares about StarCraft 2. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Canali 44, which looks like you're just walking through a sewer canal. and a horror game. English is not supported and it requires VR. It's $13.99, Polish only. Okay, well, that makes for an easy decision, I suppose. Start giving me assembly droids, I guess.
Get back here.
It would be interesting if there was a way to uncrystallize a character that had been crystallized. EA Motive's boss says player autonomy is key to the studio's future.
Another takes its place.
Which player autonomy, I guess in its general sense, means that you have control instead of making a game where the creators of the games are controlling pretty much everything. I don't know what a great example for a game that lacks player autonomy is. I would say a game that's full of randomization elements, a game that is full of microtransactions, a game that holds the player's hands and just walks them through a kinetic visual novel type experience where there are no branching paths and there's nothing different. You just have that one experience that the game developer wants you to have. I'd argue Last of Us Part 2 probably is a great example of something that is lacking in player autonomy.
Well, settle down, would you?
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Crazy Engineer, which seems to be kind of a Rube Goldberg type simulator physics game. It doesn't seem like there's a lot here, so in early access state for $11.99, English allegedly full audio. Again, what would be making any kind of full audio there? Any kind of speech? Maybe it's me that just misunderstands the idea of what full audio means. I'll put this on the follow list, but it would need some major improvement. Okay. One, two, and three,
Darkness on this plane.
and then evolve
There's
this.
a lot more where that came from.
Emergency mode. Activate. Enemy identified.
Attack that.
Finally, an end to this.
Check out there's an article here. Atelier Ryza 2 release date set for January of 2021. Or Atelier Thyza. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about them drawing her with thick thighs, which for Japanese people, there's not a lot of thigh lovers out there, or at least there wasn't before Atelier Ryza came out, but she was very popular. Visually speaking, although I think the game itself stands out besides that. January 26, 2021 seems to be when the game's coming out, and I do think is going to be slightly different from the way the first game played. This one.
These weapons are for hunting dragons.
And then
Ready to witness my true strength?
Your scales. Get back here.
that.
I shall become one with
And
the
that.
Verifying access.
no match for me.
I'm gonna just start covering the news
Pierce the dark.
and ignore the rest of the games, and we'll leave some games for Monday. TechRaptor has an article, Xbox Series S load times can be faster than Series X, according to Phil Spencer, which makes sense. You know, there could be longer load times for a console that is trying to potentially load better graphics or load off of a disk or just any number of slight variations there. This does 6, so we need that.
Keep fighting.
And then
We're gonna really
there's
fly now.
ball that.
You have angered me. Straight ahead, more power. Cutting across.
But yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it says. Lower graphics equals faster loading. Yeah. A massive amount, I would say, of game loading, modern game loading, really is built around just uncompressing the texture packs. TechRaptor has an article here, The Secret of Monkey Island, a 30-year look back. So it seems like they really have just rephrased it. Either that or they've just written an article because it's the 30th anniversary for Secret of Monkey Island. Which, alright, that does definitely make me feel a little bit older when we realize that a game I recall playing, not when I was particularly that young, is 30 years old, but yeah. Time conquers all, as it were. Still not making great success here, but we got 2 of the daily missions done, and I think that's where I really want to wrap up as far as playing any more Shadowverse. We have a decent amount of news I want to cover, and then I'm going to leave the rest of the games for Monday. OpenCritic has an article here. Cyberpunk 2077 on Stadia will launch simultaneous with other platforms. Good to know. Wasn't really expecting anything different, but also I wasn't really paying attention. Return of Obra Dinn is half off because it's its anniversary. So getting it for like $10 probably isn't a bad deal. Let's see if it's half off on Steam. Yeah. Half off is the lowest price it's ever been. And so there's an argument there to buy the game now because it last time was half off. And well, I don't think it was ever half off. It's still probably a little bit expensive, but you're just not going to get better prices because it's an indie developer, indie publisher, and I just don't think he can afford to lower the value of his product when he only has that and Paper Please to work on and make income for himself. At a certain point, you're just paying for doing business with a small business person. I usually don't cover Kotaku articles, but they do have Xbox Phil Spencer on Series X launch, Halo Infinite, and Bethesda as an interview, which, okay. It's a little surprising Kotaku gets any interviews, but there is that weirdness with the mainstream video game media in the sense that there actually is no good system to determine who has credibility and who doesn't. I guess that's probably true for most journalist sites, but yeah, it's kind of hard to say, hey, don't give an interview to Kotaku when you're probably advertising on Kotaku as a game publisher and game developer, and also you know that Kotaku still seems to get a decent amount of views, and views I guess are king more than anything else. Moving on, Gamasutra has a blog here, Switch Game Discovery, a look on the bright side, which we've seen several blogs from Gamasutra, mostly directed to game developers and publishers. Switch Game Discovery isn't particularly great, but it obviously works well enough that people still bother to list on Switch, and they get enough sales to list on Switch. Here we have a review from TechRaptor for a game called Alwa's Legacy, ALWA, which looks interesting. Let's see. It's seemingly a platforming game, maybe with some story. They're calling it a Retrovania. They give it a 7.5. Alwa's Legacy is a love letter to Metroidvania genre and 16-bit gaming in general. It said that the imitation is a sincerest form of flattery. In that case, Igarashi will be blushing. Igarashi, maker of Castlevania, I assume. It doesn't always make for a good game, though. Alwa's Legacy is an enjoyable and pretty adventure that's too formulaic to be truly memorable. Prose looks gorgeous, memorable soundtrack, a nostalgic adventure that evokes the bygone era of gaming well. Cons are struggles to stand out from the Metroidvania crown, forgettable story and characters, and it needs more structure to guide the player through the game. So, I guess I'd be willing to put this on the follow list from that review, but that's, I would definitely want to see more responses from more people before I just determined whether that would make it to the wish list. TechRaptor also has a review for a game called Aquanox Deep Descent, which seems almost like a visual novel where you're in a submarine. Or, let's see. Or a Descent clone, the game Descent. They gave it a 5.0. Descent controls can't save this game from being aggressively bland, boring, and average. Pros, the controls work really well. Cons, bland characters and storyline. Almost every mission is the same. Every location looks the same. That is, I think, inherently a problem with any game set underwater. Gamasutra has an article here. The PlayStation 5 user interface is an instant hub that prioritizes gameplay. So that's nice. It still seems like they are invoking the ideas of the cross-media bar by having some features down at the bottom instead of them being at the top like they were. Seems interesting that they would put a clock on it, and not potentially put a clock over here. They actually, I think, have a lot of work that they need to do with their interface to compete against what the instant load and all of the offerings that Xbox offers, with the resuming of multiple games and reloading. Because it seems to me, from what I'm hearing, is most people for the Xbox One series have just loaded a game once and then suspended it, and then when they launched their console the next time, it immediately loaded into that suspended state. Very much how Windows users try to get away from ever actually rebooting, and instead they just sleep or suspend their computer, which is a much faster loading experience. Next we have a Gametsu article here. Well, yeah. Gametsu has Legends of Eternal? Eternal? Is that how you spell Eternal? Eternal. I think it's Eternal. A made-up word. Launches October 30th. Okay. Looks like it's a bit of a platformer fantasy game. Yeah, looks like there's something here. Interesting. That comes out in October 30th via Steam. So I'll put that on the fall list, although putting things on the fall list that aren't even out yet is a silly move. One of the things that I hear, and I don't know if other people hear, is I think having two computers in my room at the moment is just increasing the fan hum, a very high pitch hum that that is getting picked up on the microphone, or just perhaps electrical noise in general on the wires, which I'd like to reduce that, but I don't know how to fix it. In fact, I'm not sure it's not just directly on the headphones, and maybe some grounding or shielding issue might fix that better. Excuse me. Although I don't want to replace my headphones, since I just saved some money by just putting a zippered cover over the headband that was falling apart. The platter was falling off. I'm going to need to wrap up because I'm going to start to have a coughing fit here. TechRaptor has a review here for the game Noida. Yeah, this is the one I'm very iffy about. They gave it a 9.0. Noida is truly great experience that should be played by those with patience. Pros, interesting mechanics, great world, fantastic physics, lots of replayability. Cons are the difficulty might put off newcomers. Now what's interesting here is you have a staff writer here that has opted for not a real picture on TechRaptor, where they have been fairly professional about having real pictures. So I think like there should be an improvement there, and his description like that doesn't look like a very professional byline to have for an editor to have allowed the person to use. TechRaptor has an article here. Video games will soon account for over 50% of the UK's entertainment market, which the UK's entertainment market is fairly small, but it does go to show that the BBC and TV and movies are failing in the UK, although frankly a lot of things need improvement. And inherently I think some of that really comes down to the nanny state and the pro-censorship attitude that the UK government still manages to have. So yeah, I would say England in particular needs to embrace free speech as a culture more before their entertainment is going to manage to be more entertaining. Like even basic things, you'd imagine that there would be images of the Queen in hundreds or thousands of depictions in movies and TV shows, and it's just not the case. You almost never see her depicted because she's been made sacrosanct for no good reason. Let's see. We already talked about this, but Gamematsu has the same article. The Streets of Korocho, Streets of Rage, and Yakuza is coming to October 17th for a limited time for free as an advertisement thing. Alright, and then that brings me to the Humble Bundle. And see, we have a Worms Humble Bundle. Worms. Which I'm not sure how many of these games I own or don't own. Like, I didn't even know Worms Pinball existed. Worms Blast and Worms Crazy Golf may not be something. Still $1 to get you the first Worms game and several spin-offs that nobody recognizes. It's not terrible. Then you have Worms Reloaded, Worms Ultimate Mayhem, a bunch of DLC packs, and more Worms games. The thing about the Worms games as well, I would love to own all of them just to support the developers. It's kind of hard to have people around to play it because it's kind of local, I think, for all the games. I'm not sure. Even Worms World Party Remastered has online games. And for some reason, Worms Weapons of Mass Destruction and Worms Revolution has a season pass. I didn't even know that. I thought World Party Remastered was the most recent one, but apparently Revolution is the newest one. So $17 in total to get all the Worms games. Not a bad deal, particularly if you've never bought any of the other Worms games and you actually are interested in them, to have that whole collection. And then let's see, there's this Let's Fight bundle still going on for 3 more days. I'm not getting around to that. And then there's no other bundles worth mentioning. But oddly, we did go back to the point where at least 2 of the bundles had something relevant, some games that I could actually add to my massive collection. So then that brings me to my Twitter feed. More games are still coming out. Pokemon Go is updating Mega Evolutions, apparently. Even an hour ago. As I see, it's like nearly 10 o'clock in the evening on a Friday. Even an hour ago, games are getting listed on Steam. So somebody's burning the midnight oil. So now I'm just scrolling down my Twitter feed. I've got to really figure out what's the deal with my batteries and my receivers, because something weird is definitely going on. Alright, well, that seems like only 2 or 3 games actually came out. Yeah. Okay, so that means we're done. Yeah. Perhaps not as lazy of a Friday as usual. We went 2 hours and 47 minutes. So, man, I must have started later than I thought. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.